You a very warm welcome to the 16th Brand Global Summit 2020, Brands for Sustainability. A very special welcome to all of you who are joining us virtually here today. I know many of you are joining because this is a hybrid event, which is taking place partially online today. There are representatives from politics, business, science, international organizations joining from all over the world. So welcome to all of you. I'm Sarah Kelly. I'm a TV news anchor and a journalist. I am thrilled to be your moderator. Over the next couple of hours, we're going to be hearing about the importance of brands. We will hear why they are valuable assets, how brands can help companies perform better, and ultimately, how they can work to foster inclusive and sustainable industrial development and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. A number of high-level conversations discussing just that coming up within the next couple of hours. But first, we have the great honor and the great pleasure of being welcomed by the hosts today. We are joined by the founder of the Brand Global Summit and the president of the European Brand Institute. That is Dr. Gerhard Rabichik. He will be taking the stage in just a couple of moments. But first, to open this conference, we have the great honor and pleasure of being joined by the Director General of Unido, Yong, who's going to take the stage now just opposite me in order to give the opening remarks. And we will hear about how Unido has pioneered branding as a tool for inclusive and sustainable industrial development. There are many success stories over the last years. We will be hearing some of them later today and as we move on with this conference. But first, the Director General of Unido, Yong.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and a privilege for me to address you today. The global pandemic has impacted all of us. We changed the way we work. Today, I address you both on and offline and approach this as a new normal. The pandemic has brought inevitable challenge, but also opportunities. As we have seen during this pandemic, digitalization has accelerated dramatically and has opened the window of opportunity for new approaches, initiatives, including branding. And strategic brand management is an important tool for companies to be innovative. And on and offline, we therefore need to take advantage of this symbiosis between the branding and the fourth industrial revolution. In the area of high economic pressures that push us and all of us, countries, towards innovation incentive production and intelligent marketing, branding approaches are increasingly used by the developing and emerging economies to promote inclusive and sustainable industrial development, which COVID-19, its impact on the workplace, increased the digitalization, branding has provided companies with level of resilience and the opportunity to establish a more robust digital presence. And colleagues, friends, combining state-of-art technologies and platforms, companies with strong brand show the high performance and difficult to replicate intangible assets. These companies also outperform long-term returns in comparison with classic growth companies. These characteristics make them a preferred choice for long-term investors. The economic shock resulting from the lockdown was easier to weather for companies with strong brands, and their recovery was much quicker than that of the companies without brands. Colleagues, friends, Unido's branding service portfolio has proven to be highly effective in terms of driving sustainable growth and improve the competitiveness as it ensures intellectual value addition, leading to the improved market access and a steady promotion of the enterprises, either through their products, services in both local and international market. Unido's technical assistance and technical cooperation projects implemented in Armenia, Tajikistan, Montenegro show that brand management can play an integrated role for inclusive and sustainable industrial development. Our endeavor in partnership with the European Brand Institute, EBI, has been valuable as we continue to explore innovative ideas to ensure that our work has a lasting impact. Colleagues, friends, following our signed MOU, we look forward to further developing our partnership with EBI to provide the branding support to small, medium enterprises, regions, and the cities in developing countries to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I'm very confident that we will see the results of even more innovative projects thanks to this partnership. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this event is an excellent opportunity to showcase success stories and exchanges of experiences on how to use digitalization and branding as effective solutions to support the country's regions to achieve higher productivity, diversify, and to attract investment, especially in the context of the COVID-19 crisis. I therefore have the pleasure and honor to open this conference. I look forward to our fruitful, productive discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the Director General of Unido for opening this conference. As we mentioned, the Brand Global Summit 2020. We're going to be joined now by Dr. Gerhard Rabichik. I'd like to invite him to make his way to the stage. He has 25 years of experience in brand and patent valuation, and he's the chairman of the ISO Development Committee on ISO 20671 brand evaluation. He's the founder of the Brand Global Summit and the president of the European Brand Institute. Gerhard, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I must take this microphone. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Director General, for these opening words. Thanks for hosting us here at the Vienna International Center in the Unido headquarters. It's a pleasure to be here for the second time already. Welcome also all excellencies. Our Minister Schramböck, I think, is online already. Welcome, Margarete, to this forum. Yes, I want to welcome all of you, excellencies, experts, partners, and our international guests around the globe, this year also on the screens and on the devices. We've come a long way. We've come a long way. 16 years. It's the 16th event here in Vienna, this time Brand Global Summit, Brands for Sustainability. Brands are very, very valuable assets. Probably the most valuable assets a company, a region, a city and cluster has, but it's the least understood. Not everybody understands what brands are for, and that's why we are having this summit here in Vienna. I want to thank all partners who supported us in this event, especially the City of Vienna, the mayor and the Governor of the City of Vienna, Dr. Michael Ludwig, invited us yesterday to a fantastic opening reception. It was the Vienna Brand Gala City Reception. Also the group of Latin American countries and the Caribbean made a special contribution yesterday. We had a nice entertainment from the Ibero-American Orchestra. And of course, I want to thank Unido for the support in this initiative. It's very special times, COVID, so we have a COVID-conform event Thank you very much, Mr. Director General, Bernardo, and all the teams here who supported us. Today we have a global audience. I think we have represented 80 or more countries. And the topic is Brands for Sustainability. I just want to introduce you briefly what it's about. We want to show how brands contribute to economies and societies, and this sustainably. We want to show how they perform better. We want to use them as collateral. And one thing, only 5 to 9% of global companies use this system. So more than 90% we did not reach with this concept of brand, registering brand, and using it. I think that's also why we have this summit. We will present success stories on brands, brand management. We show how they create sustainable growth and also economic resilience, which is very important, the post-COVID recovery on which we work on. So brands create prosperity and sustainability. Of course, we will give an outlook to the future, 2030, what will happen there. Hopefully the SDGs are implemented. And we invite you today to learn from the global experts, learn from the success stories, from the best practice examples from America, Asia, Europe, here in Vienna. As a president, I wish you a very successful and enjoyable 16th Brand Global Summit here. Get inspired, and what we want is maybe you can take at home at least one idea with you to implement it in your business or private life, and then already this summit was a success for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Gerhard, and we're going to begin now with the opening dialogue here at the Brand Global Summit 2020. We are joined remotely. I think you can probably see in the corner of your screen there, we have joining us Her Excellency Margarete Schramböck. She is the Minister of Digital and Economic Affairs for Austria, so welcome to you. We also have joining us on the stage opposite to me, Bernardo Calzadilla-Sarmiento, Managing Director, Directorate of Digitalization, Technology, and Agri-Business from Unido. Welcome, Bernardo. And Gerhard is also going to be rejoining us on the stage to talk about these very, very important topics. Bernardo, I'd like to begin first, however, with you and talk a little bit more about sustainable brands, how they perform better, setting up companies to really be future leaders. We're in a unique set of circumstances right now, economically, around the world. There are major challenges everywhere. Your department, you've been working on the fourth industrial revolution, digitalization, branding over the past couple of years. Unido has achieved some great success stories when it comes to branding. So tell us how Unido's work on branding contributes to sustainable development.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much. Branding is an important element for competitiveness, and competitiveness is something that we have been working for many, many years in Unido. And the key ingredient for competitiveness is quality and standards. And I think it's important to go back to that concept, because you need to increase the quality, you need to reduce cost, and standards are a very powerful tool to do this. Now, we have been collaborating with the European Branding Institute on the standards development and this, dissemination of the standard. And this is something very important, because we need to help the companies in the developing countries to reach the market. And I think branding together with design, together with cost reduction, are very important elements for that. And we have seen that when we apply this, we improve the sales. We have higher quality products, because the reputation obliges you to go higher and higher, and you have also a very important impact on employment. And in times of COVID, we have also seen that branding helps resilience, because companies can very easily switch in terms of their production lines. We have a number of examples of ongoing technical cooperation projects where we help them to switch in the textile sector, for example, in Armenia, to produce also PPE personal protective equipment, masks, etc. And we have seen that they could do it because they had a brand. They had a client context that allowed them to do that. Certainly, in the context of another setup, Jimmy's, we have also seen that, for example, Strata, which is a technological company, started to move into PPE. Certainly, in this case, it was much more sophisticated. They moved into respirators, but they could do it. They had the technological capability, but they had the power of their brand. So brand helps business continuity, branding helps resilience. And I would like just to add that digitalization comes in as a very important element, because nowadays, not only COVID, we had a long process of digital transformation, and before COVID we knew that this is the way forward, but we have seen that in order to build this new future, this new normal, we will need to move. Eventually the future will be hybrid. Many things will happen like that, and for companies to reach the international markets, developing countries need to set up the necessary digital infrastructure, digital skills to help the companies to be competitive and contribute to the quality of life in their countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernardo, for sharing that. You touched on so many valuable examples there. We also heard about, how companies are adjusting, of course, amid the pandemic. And with that, I would like to turn to Federal Minister, Her Excellency Margarete Schramböck, who's joining us virtually today, and ask you about your country. How do you see Austria's trademark, in particular, with dealing with the current pandemic? And what is the relation specifically to brands?
Well, first of all, let me say hello to all of you, to Director General, to the President, to the colleagues on the panel, and to all the participants. I hope you can hear me well. Is that okay? Is the sound okay? Oh, I get no answer. I hope you can hear me. What I would say is that the speciality about Austria is that as many countries, of course, we want to react quickly and also help efficiently. And it has already been mentioned, and you see it also in the name of my ministry as a Minister of Digital and Economic Affairs. We have put the digital first. And this is because digital and digital transformation and digital solutions is like a vaccine for economy. It helps to transform the economy. It helps to create jobs, especially in difficult areas like now. It helps us to make sure that the people have right jobs also for the future. And therefore, this digital topic is not only one for brands. It's very important for the businesses and the brands, but it's something for the whole economy, where nobody should be left over and nobody should be left behind. For me, this digitalization as a vaccine is true for digital learning. We have now seen it. Everybody is homeschooling and is working at home. Then it's also true for creating new jobs. Through digitalization, we can create new jobs even in this difficult area. So at the moment, new jobs are created by this digital transformation, and it helps also to create new business models for the companies. So it helps actually, this digital transformation, to save the big problems of this world. Also including this problem that we have currently, which is the COVID crisis. So technical innovation using digital knowledge is key. It's a key factor not only for Austria, for whole Europe. So what we need to is to invest into this area. In Austria, we have therefore created a special investment bonus, which is there for companies who want to invest into these future topics. We have chosen 3 topics, of which digitalization is one of the most important. Second, there is also environmental protection, of course, and third, life science, which is the production of medicine or vaccine as we need it now very urgently. So this is heavily used. So this A special bonus which we are offering is accepted by the companies. They are investing billions and billions at this moment, taking the investment forward. And I think this is what shows that even in these difficult times, it is possible to invest into the future. And this is the important topic. So for me, this branding, so to say, for it is that digitalization is key and is first in all the topics that we do.
Thank you so much to the Federal Minister, Schramböck, for that intervention there and for telling us a little bit more about what it is that you're doing in Austria. Gerhard, I'd like to turn back to you now because we know that you have been leading the European Brand Institute for 25 years. And perhaps you can set the stage for us in terms of how you see right now the European economy, how you see it influenced by brands, how you see it influenced by intellectual property, perhaps becoming an even bigger portion of the EU's GDP. So, Gerhard, what is the situation right now?
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome again. Yes, people buy brands, not products. We are in a when we are in a digital world, we are also in a world of brands. Brands account for about 87% of the S&P 500 value. This means this value of S&P 500 companies is driven by intellectual property. Brands account for 40% of this intellectual, so of a general company value, 40% or more, going to 60%. So it's a very, very important asset. We did an analysis where we compared the top 10 brands of a country to the GDP of this country, and we saw that there is a 92% correlation between having strong brands and the GDP of a country. What does that mean? This means when you build strong brands in your country, you increase the GDP per capita, which also means that you create prosperity. That's actually the reason why we do this here, this program together with Unido, also to support developing countries in increasing their GDP and creating a better world. Now, coming back to the EU, we know that in the European Union, 35% of the jobs are directly or indirectly supported by brands and IP rights. 39% of the EU GDP is derived by that. So 39% of the EU GDP is depending on brands and IP rights. And 90% of external trades. We also see that companies who apply this system, IP rights, they own them, perform much better than other ones. They can pay higher salaries. But only 9% of SMEs in Europe are using this system. So that's why our estimate is that worldwide, only 5 to 9% are using this system. This means more than 90% don't have access to that. And yes, brands are more important than ever, especially for the post-COVID recovery. We see a huge potential, especially by brands, especially also when governments set up programs for financing brands, for investment in brands, subsidies for brands. We see it, how successful these Unido projects were. There was a return on investment of times 30. So if you invest 10 million, your return is 300 million. This is really fantastic, and that's what we see. So brands, sustainable brands, can really bring us out of the crisis. They can carry us through the crisis, and sustainable brands will even emerge stronger after the crisis as they are before. Yes.
Really fascinating stuff. So that's really an assessment of what is happening right now. Bernardo, I'd like to turn to you now. We're going to talk about the future because it was really fascinating actually to hear you speak a little bit earlier about resilience, sustainability, how Unido is really being a champion right now of the creation of brands. So what do you see as necessary to continue now in the future? How does Unido utilize branding as a tool for development?
Thank you so much. Yes, for Unido, the big challenge is how to help companies in the post-COVID, in the post-crisis, let's call it. COVID is still here, era. And we have been devoting a lot of efforts. For example, we looked how in China SMEs recovered, and we did a guide to help companies out of the crisis. We focused there on resilience, on business continuity. We have been also developing a program called COVID Industrial Recovery Program, because what is necessary is to provide a package. And yes, branding is a key element, but it cannot be seen in isolation. We need an upgrading of the companies that takes into account design is very important. Digitalization, we talked already a lot. Minister elaborated very clearly how it is the basis for all future development. But it is also important to see that we can reach sustainability only if we put a special emphasis on innovation. And innovation also for small companies. They need to get, and I take what was said about SMEs, too few SMEs are really making the efforts to introduce brands, but too few small companies are also doing the effort to do innovation, and they are still very much shy investing in digitalization. So it's the combination of all these elements that will ensure resilience, competitiveness, and therefore their contribution for sustainability.
Okay, so there are programs in place. There is a focus on innovation when it comes to SMEs. Minister Schramböck, I'd like to turn to you now again and ask you if you can perhaps speak with us about similar trends, similar contexts in terms of what you are doing in Austria. As the Minister of Digital and Economic Affairs, how do you see the connection between what you are doing and brands and the development of Austria as a business location? And perhaps you'd also like to broaden it out and maybe tie that into the European perspective for us.
Sure. This context between brands and the business locations is very tight. It is tighter than many people would think, and it has already been mentioned correctly that especially SME, which are typical for countries like Germany and Austria, but other European countries lag a little bit behind it, that we need to support them heavily. So if we think of Austria, only few people would think that Red Bull is actually invented by an Austrian and is a brand and has headquarters here in Austria. Same is true for Swarovski, where these crystals are bought all over the world, or Wolford, who was also invented in Austria. So it is important for any country to promote the branding and the intellectual property rights. And I would go into detail a little bit more into also the intellectual property rights, because they are so key. And of course, we need to make sure that they are kept by, that they are respected, both by nations and companies and individuals. And this is an important role where we need this common fight together, the different organizations like Unido, WTO, OECD, and other organizations, and of course also the European Commission, the European Union, and the member states. Looking at Europe, what has happened over the past years and what has happened to brands. And I come from the digital and IT industry. I've been working there for 22 years. I've been leading 15 years different IT companies. And what we have seen is a dramatic change over the last 20 years or 15 years in brands. So whereas originally we had traditional industrial brands leading the world championships of brands, it is now the digital brands which are leading. 7 out of 10 of the most valuable brands of the world are digital brands, and unfortunately none of them is European. And we have one big digital brand with SAP, which is ranked number 17. So what does this show us? That we have missed the opportunity, especially on the digital platform business B2C in Europe. So here, this is more seen in the US and also in China. There is big development there. However, Europe can still catch up in the B2B area, and here especially the digital focus is important. And therefore, I'm working hard together with my colleagues on different projects, and a lot has to be done. We need a new competition law in Europe respecting this, having a look to the outside, not only to the inside. We need a framework for European infrastructure. Everything is there. We just need to combine it. And this project is started by the German presidency named Gaia X, and we are participating with a project which is called Austrian Cloud. So that is a second point which has to be done. And third, of course, we need digital education to train our young people to be able to form companies and to develop new solutions, new services, or new processes, which they can then, which are valuable enough to be protected. I think here Europe has to catch up a little bit, not a little bit, a lot. And we also need to be more alert and more take care what is happening. So we have been a little bit naive in the last couple of 10 to 15 years, I would say, in this respect. And now we need to form new conditions, new framework conditions, especially to be successful in the digital B2B area. We need brands, and here we come back to the brands. We need good brands there.
Okay, the need for good brands. That sounded a bit like a call for action, the need for more education, the need for changes in the regulatory framework. With that, I'd just like to tell our viewers right now, by the way, I've been asking all of the questions so far. There's actually the opportunity for many of you who are joining us digitally online to ask your own questions. You just go into Zoom as you're watching, go into the chat function, submit your questions. I can already see that there's one in there, and I'm going to be sure to ask it. But first, I'm going over to Gerhard. And Gerhard, I'd like to ask you if you could elaborate on what you were saying a little bit earlier and throw it in the context of sustainability for us, if you will. Because as we mentioned, you're an expert in brand and patent valuation. How do you see that work contributing to sustainable development? And what do you think lies ahead in the next few months, in the next few years?
Yes, thank you. Your Excellency Minister, you are for digital. Every digitalization initiative also needs a brand initiative. Why? Two perspectives. First, once you are on the internet, you are an international company, so you must be visible. And you must differentiate yourself. How you do this? Through a brand. So this is the first perspective. The second one is, the more technical the world becomes, the more the people want relationships. And brands build relationships. We feel comfortable with brands. They give orientation, support, convey values. They give us experiences. We like them. In a digital world, primarily the brand creates trust for the consumers, stakeholders, investors, and society. So this is one thing. Never forget, if you start digitization, also start branding. Also, of course, in innovation, you know, a patent holds for 20 years, the successor patent comes 5 to 8 years. So what is sustainable? Brands are sustainable because they last forever. You can mention, you know, aspirin, whatever. The patent is long gone, but the brand is still there. So brands create sustainability. Now, coming back to the issue of financing, what does OECD say? OECD says these assets, intangible assets, are of limited utility when they seek to attract external sources of financing. That's the status now. We should improve it. And especially for innovative, fast-growing ventures that typically own a few tangible assets, mostly intangible assets, this is important. And there are a number of hurdles for debt financing collateralized by intangibles. Yes, we know that. What are the hurdles and what could be done? One hurdle is, of course, brands should be on the balance sheet. If a brand is on the balance sheet, a bank and an investor can see it. Why is real estate on the balance sheet and not brands if we say these are the most important assets in the world? In contrast to international accounting standards, some of local regulations, especially also in European Union, Germany adapted a little bit, provide a ban on capitalization of self-produced intangible assets. This is a barrier in competition. However, if this is not possible, at least we should do integrated reporting. This means you should parallel have to your annual report a brand report, an IP report, where you describe the status of your brand, their value, make the information public available. That's, of course, interesting for the banks, for insurances, also as information for your rating. We actually created an ISO 26001 program where we certify brands, where we certify also reports, and we enable those reports. That's a contribution from us, from European Brand Institute, to this movement. And one more thing, what is very important, of course, it's very important that brands are properly evaluated. This is a challenge, that it needs some more data, information. If brands are important, they should be evaluated actually every year, reported in this brand report, and I think there is a lot still to be done. Yeah, this is the outlook, what I see for brands and sustainability.
Thank you so much, Gerhard. We have our first question coming in. It is for you, Bernardo. So I'm going to turn to you and ask the question that is being asked from Sanibek Satov, which is there any initiative planned by Unido to conduct in Central Asia, especially in Kyrgyzstan, to promote branding among SMEs who specialize in processing food and tourism?
Thank you so much for this question. And yes, we are active in, it's an easy question, we are active in Kyrgyzstan. And we have a PCP program. We have a program for country partnerships. And this is an integrated program that intends to really work with all the stakeholders in order to help the country to develop its industry, but also looking into the specific export potential through specific tools, may be industrial parks. In Kyrgyzstan, we are working specifically in the agro-industrial sector, in agri-business. And when we develop our programs, especially in a country like Kyrgyzstan, we are implementing a program for the SMEs, for a set, we call them pilot group of SMEs, and we combine these elements in our upgrading program, modernization program, and we introduce these elements, and certainly then it depends. Our biggest experience is definitely in relation to branding in the textile sector, so it will be a novelty. We are just starting this program under the Global Standards and Quality Program of Unido, funded by Switzerland. We are starting such a program. Thank you.
So then, as a quick follow-up, say you're an SME in that country, in that region, how can one get involved?
We do it through the associations, yeah? We do it through value chains, and we make a selection of the value chain, and once we are working on the value chain, we work with the associations, and through the associations, we work then with the companies. We could not work directly with a given company. It would represent a subsidization of this company, but we do it in an institutional manner so that we can support also the country as a whole. So while we want to reach the benefit of industrial development to the individual companies, we need to look at a more country-wide support and development process.
That's really fascinating, and that's a question that comes up quite frequently with regarding these programs, so thank you for the clarification. I'd like to turn now back to Minister Schramböck, who's joining us virtually via Zoom, and ask you, one of the questions that has come up here is about the post-COVID role of IPR, and why innovation protection is so important these days, and ask you about the initiatives, or whether there are initiatives which are planned to use brands as collateral. That's one of the issues that we've heard Gerhard mention so often, using brands as collateral, tapping into those brands as a tool for financing, for example.
Yes, indeed. Strategic intellectual property protection is really key for commercial success for all companies, be it small startups, be it more developed companies that are longer in the business, or the large, big companies in global companies. So, but I'm not so much worried, as I said before, about the large global companies. They do have experts and they do have departments who care about that. But what we need to focus on is the smaller and medium-sized companies, especially the family-owned businesses. And here it is key that we train them, that organizations that have been mentioned, and also the summit here, that they make them aware that there is an asset which is worth being protected before somebody else is coming and is using it. So this goes together. These intellectual property rights are key, and they are key for each economy, and should also be around the globe, be a key, not to vulnerize these property rights. And on the other side, it needs this training for all the people involved, and this awareness that you can do something about it, that there are organizations that can help you, like Unido, OECD, the countries. In Austria also we have organizations that can be addressed, like AWS in Austria. It is an organization where smaller companies can go to, and where they are helped with the intellectual property rights, because it's not always that easy, that is clear, and you need experts. Sometimes it's costly, sometimes there is no time for it, because the owner is so much involved into the business, and therefore there is this organization in Austria, and I know there are in most of the countries around the world that somebody can address, and there is also the international institution. For me, it is important that especially the European Union plays a leading role worldwide in asking for this intellectual property protection, that there is clear talks, especially with countries in other continents, especially with the US also, and with China, the other big global players, so that intellectual property protection is a worldwide business and is respected anywhere, so that smaller companies, if they go abroad, can trust that they can find a multilateral system which is protecting them, is not doing them any harm, and is giving the opportunity to do save and more business.
Interesting. So the EU playing a leading role there. You also gave us a little bit of an action plan for SMEs who want to tap into some of these resources, especially in your country. We have a question that's coming in quite similarly now from somebody who is looking for assistance in the Philippines, and I'd like to direct it to you, Gerhard. And it goes as follows. It starts with a bit of background information in terms of what is going on in the country right now. This individual writes that 99.52% of business establishments in the Philippines are micro, small, and medium enterprises. They employ 70% of the workforce in the country. So therefore, in that context, how do you suggest to strengthen the brands in the country? Because the Philippines, it has huge potential for accessible tourism, as a retirement hub, for example. So what can be done to improve the brand of the Philippine businesses involved in these businesses? What would you advise them, Gerhard?
Okay, that's a good question. Some consulting for the Philippines. First, the structure of the Philippines is the same as, for instance, in Austria and the EU. Also, 99.5% are SMEs, and they account for about 70% of the jobs. So obviously the challenge everywhere is the same. What should Philippines do? Maybe in an analogy to what should Europe do, what should Austria or Germany do? First, of course, you should start with some kind of regional, national branding. So it's important that you're recognized as a nation. Then within the nation, there is this issue of regional or city branding. The development is even more cluster branding, a branding of business parks. So what we see in a project with the United Nations is that cluster projects are very, very successful. So this would mean if we have, for instance, a Vienna brand initiative, like certified Viennese brands, whatever, this would be very, very successful. We saw the success in Tajikistan, in Turkmenistan, in Armenia. We start this process now in Cuba, so we see that these cluster projects, in whatever dimension you define it, are very, very successful. Even more successful than the branding projects on a company level. However, we see from our international legwork and from our projects that some projects on the company level returned the profits times 400. So if you invest in brands, this investment is returned on the profit side by 400, up to 400. This is unbelievable numbers. So of course you can do something on the company level. Very interesting to do it jointly, as Bernardo said, with a cluster. Even better if the region supports it and if a country supports it.
Thank you so much. Bernardo, would you maybe like to weigh in as well?
Sure, I would just add that we have very good examples of what we call geographical branding, yeah, geographical indications. In Tunisia, harissa, you know the sharp pepper of, it needed branding. It's a location, but if nobody knows it, then there is confused. There is no classification. We had another case in Morocco, argan oil. Yeah, everybody knows the place argan oil, but argan oil needs standards, needs to defend its quality. So we have a number of examples that show that, you call them cluster programs, can help also to support women, to support young people. We have the idea, and we are trying to work a project in relation to the gold mining. Yeah, I know the case in Latin America. There is a lot of gold mining, but there is also the utilization of mercury. And what we need to do is to help the communities to have a brand of the village. And if the brand of the village starts telling, I am the village and I am producing mercury-free, this gold, and then you help them with design and you help them with branding, you are having an developmental impact. You are helping the society, but you are also doing good for environment, and this is a very good example for sustainability. Brand for sustainability through helping the community to have a brand of their product.
Thank you so much. And I want to get the minister's reaction, but just very quickly, Gerhard wanted to add a quick point.
Yes, because this is so important, geographic indication, region brands. On the ISO level, we are creating a new standard now, which will be published probably in spring next year, especially for this topic. Regional branding, GI branding, geographic indications, how to do it, what is the best practice. So there will be an ISO standard which also supports the regions to do a proper brand management.
Thank you so much. Minister Schramböck, I'd like to get you also to weigh in here now. Perhaps you have some reactions. And also, something else perhaps that you might want to react to was that statistic that we had Gerhard mentioned a little bit earlier, 5 to 9% of brands registering. Perhaps you can tell us what can be done to strengthen those mechanisms and what can be improved to help companies register and establish brands within your ministry.
Well, first, let me also say a few words to this clustering of brands or branding clustering. I find it a very good idea, and we also have very good experience on that. I just want to mention our cluster Silicon Alps. You would never combine the Alps with the semiconductor industry. However, in the southern part of Austria, in the middle of the wonderful mountains and lakes of Carinthia and Styria, and also Upper Austria, there is a region where semiconductors are produced. And for the first time, after many, many years, factories are opening there where semiconductor production is restarting in Europe. So there has been a 1.6 billion investment in Carinthia just recently, and we have, of course, also supported these clusters. So I'm very much fond of clusters. Cluster responsibility is also in my ministry, and I can only recommend I can only recommend the different ministries responsible for economy in different countries to have a close look at these cluster policies and cluster strategies and support what have been said before. So that is for the one thing. For the other thing is that, of course, the SMEs need help. And as I've said, we do have an organization which is called AWS in Austria and is helping the SME business in this process of protection of intellectual property. They can address them in a digital way or directly, and I guess this is something important for each country, especially for smaller countries, to have an organization which is aligned to the ministry to take care of this special topic.
Thank you so much, Minister Schramböck. And I just want to let you know that during what you were saying, your video actually froze. So perhaps you want to turn your video off and then back on. This is a world now where we're all dealing with these technological realities in these hybrid conferences. So thank you so much, everybody, for your patience with all of that. And now, in conclusion, I'd like to ask the following question. Gerhard, I'd like to begin with you because we'd like to be a bit future-looking as we conclude this part of the program and ask you for your thoughts right now on what needs to be done to harness the power of brands more. What is lacking the most? Is it awareness, skills, finance, all of the above? What needs to be expanded in your view? Gerhard.
Yes, thank you. As you all know, money talks, and the second thing I leave out. So number one, in my perspective, is to be able to use brands as collateral for financing. If this is the case, then the whole movement will improve. Also, it's good that we have agencies supporting us in registering brands, but this whole process is too complex. I think in today's world, we need a kind of Facebook of brands, or a much easier access. Yeah, you need a lawyer, need a system. It's all too bureaucratic. I think reaching 95% needs a different access. It needs different systems. It needs different thinking. We should go digital. We should use new technologies in order to make it much easier for this protection. We just wanted to protect the brand in Cuba. This costs more than 1,000 Swiss francs. This is not state of the art anymore. So it's good to ease it and to support the existing system, but I think we are challenged to work on a new system or an additional system maybe for this. Yes, money is important. Of course, skills. We should raise the awareness. We should raise the awareness that brands are real assets, that this is the future. We are in the orange economy, so even more we go towards an intangible economy. SMEs are producing intangibles. Everybody is producing intangibles, so we should protect them. We should be able to finance them. Otherwise, we won't be successful, and sustainability is left to old machines, And this is historic. We are in a different age, and a different age needs also different systems.
Thank you so much, Gerhard. And Bernardo, we know Unido is already doing so much, so perhaps you would like to give us your wish list, something that you would like to see going forward.
Thank you so much. We have discussed that the world is not anymore, and the production is not intangibles, but is in intangibles. Minister talked about Red Bull, but we know Red Bull not because of the drink. I know Red Bull because soccer. racing, they move into music. So brands have the possibility to expand, but it is a different way of creating value. Value is created in a completely different manner. Look at Amazon. Amazon was created as a competition to eBay, an auction, e-commerce option. And what is Amazon today? Amazon is the brand, but they are producing their own products. They are producing, even migrating into agriculture, they produce, and what are they selling to you? They are selling you Amazon, and Amazon is the power. So the same thing happens in that we need a lot of awareness. In developing countries in particular, we need to strengthen what we call the innovation ecosystem. And we need, what I said, we need to make more use of the standards, innovation, and we need to bring this cluster approach, and we need to make sure that this also gets at the level of policies. And this is where we appreciated very much the intervention of Minister Schramböck, because she showed us that it is important to have the right policies so we can help the SMEs and ultimately the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Minister Schramböck, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you. Can you hear me?
Fantastic, fantastic. Perhaps you want to also turn on your video. I can indeed hear you. And we're hoping for better luck this time.
I turned on my video. Is something which happened. I think we cannot repair it. Maybe now.
Oh, it's working. It looks great. Fantastic. Oh, bravo. Good. Wonderful.
So we did. So it's all about cooperation, as we see. It's all about this cooperation side by side, politics, companies, organizations all around the world. And always keep in mind that the SME business, each big company was once a small company, and we need to create a framework together by improving their situation so that they can grow and prosper, because actually this means jobs and the future for families and for people. It's all about the digitalized world and means so much opportunities for men and women and children all around the world. Just think about a woman in Africa who can join and build her own business, because she can have an iPhone, or she can have a mobile phone, she can participate in business life through that. So there's a lot of opportunities, as has been said in the beginning. It's our task together to bring up the right rules, the right conditions, and so make their life easier, and by digitalization solve the big problems of the world.
So all big companies were once small companies. Those are perhaps some words that might inspire some people out there who are currently involved in those initiatives. I'd like to thank you very much, Her Excellency Margarete Schramböck, Minister of Digital and Economic Affairs of Austria. We've also had Bernardo Calzadilla-Sarmiento, Managing Director of the Directorate of Digitalization, Technology and Agri-Business from Unido, and Gerhard Rabichik, President of the European Brand Institute. Bernardo and Gerhard, a very big round of applause. I'd like to invite you to leave the stage now. This concludes our opening dialogue. Thank you so much, Madam Federal Minister, for all of your contributions. Bravo.